Hi guys, and welcome back for another tutorial. Today I wanted to be on camera for this one because I'm so excited about this project. I worked really hard on it and really fast on it too. But I think it turned out super cute, and it is an apron. Now everybody needs a cute little apron around the holidays. I'm not much of an apron wearer, but if I was gonna wear one, it would definitely be around the holidays, don't you think? But this one is really fun because it actually has a pocket in it like this. See? It's got a kangaroo pocket so you can access it from both sides. I'm obsessed. And the frill, like, come on, how cute is that? But I actually did make this one in a more like masculine way, so if you want to see that one, you have to follow me over on Instagram. And if you're not following me over on Instagram, you need to come over and follow me on Instagram. Because over on Instagram, you can actually chat with me if you want to. If you have any questions about any of my patterns or tutorials or anything, you can just slide into my DMs, and I am your sewing resource friend over there. But yeah, I'll have pictures of that over there. And if you're not already subscribed to me on YouTube, you need to. I'm almost at 100,000 subscribers. I'm so excited. I can't believe it. I'm trying to get there by the end of the year, but I mean, I doubt it. It's wishful thinking, but wouldn't it be cool? So if you could help by subscribing, it's absolutely free, and it'll just get me that little bit closer to 100,000. But yeah, so I also wanted to mention that this pattern, of course, will be over the blog post. Those links will be in the description box. And also, I do have a podcast, a sewing podcast. So if you're new to sewing, you just want to hear about people sewing and different types of sewing, Craft with Bethany is my co-host. She's on YouTube and Instagram also. And we just talk about all things sewing. We have sewing guests. We talk about their sewing, which is really fun because even though I have my own sewing and what sewing projects I usually like to work with, listening to people talk about their type of sewing or what they enjoy, like, you still learn so much even though maybe they don't sew the same things as you. So it's just a good time. We, just chat like we're old friends, and it's just a lot of fun. So all those links, again, will be in the description, in the cards, everywhere. So yeah, let's just get straight into the tutorial. Okay, so we're going to talk about the pattern pieces that you need. So if you go over to the blog post, I will have all the instructions on how to cut out the pattern. So this is the front part of my apron. I made it out of this beautiful avocado Christmas print. How cute is this? I'm absolutely obsessed. So we're going to cut out one of these. And this is the only one that I'm going to have as a decorative. So the rest of it is going to be red, and it's going to sort of frame this. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we have these two seams. We're going to flip the piece right sides out. Woo. Like that. And then we're going to get our ironing board out. And we're just going to go ahead and press this nice and flat, making sure that it's all poked out. It looks so nice. And then we'll do the other side. And then we're going to do a top stitch along that just to finish it off. We're going to do that on both sides. I'm just going to go along there and do like a little less than 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. to. Okay, so now we're going to put the other lining piece into the pocket, and that's going to put the fabric here so that you can see where your pocket's going to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip it over, take the lining piece, and we're going to put that on top like this. Now again, if this is a fabric that has a right or wrong side, we're going to make it so that the right side is facing this fabric, just so that we can see it. So on the inside, this is going to be the right side, and this is going to be the right side. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to sew a seam all the way down here. From here, we're going to baste along here and then along here, because when we go to do the ruffle, we kind of want to do that so it doesn't make things a little complicated. But we're going to do this seam first. Okay, so I just tucked the fabric kind of out of the way, and we're going to do a seam along here. Now this is the pocket, this is the bottom of the pocket, so if you wanted to do a couple rows of stitches just to make sure that it's nice and secure and it doesn't come undone later on, because you're not going to be able to reinforce this pocket again. So yeah, so don't, you know, feel free to do 2 rows of stitches just to be certain. Especially if someone, you know, wants to like put a spatula or something inside that could possibly cut the inside of your apron. You never know what people are going to shove in there. A meat thermometer might poke through it, so we're just lining up our fabrics as we go down. So I did that seam, so I'm just going to put some pins just to keep it flat, and you're just going to do it like really close to the edge. This is just a baste. And a baste means that you're just doing like a stitch that's just used for securing temporarily and not, so you can even make it a longer stitch so that it's quicker to do. Okay, another tuck. Okay, so now we're going to work on our ruffle. So I have 3 separate pieces, and these are the length of my width of my fabric. So I just cut strips to make it easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fabric and I'm going to make a 90-degree angle like this. Okay, and I'm going to kind of overlap it a little bit, like 1/4 of an inch. And then what you're going to do is you're going to do a seam from here to here. And if your fabrics have a right or wrong side, make sure the right side's together when you're doing this. Now if you do it from here to here, when you go to flip your fabric, it is going to line up like this, and you're going to have a long continuous piece. And then when you get down to this end, again, you're going to take your fabrics, and we're going to add on another piece, and we're going to put it with the fabrics going 90 degrees, and then we'll go right across here, and then again it's going to lay like this. And this is going to make one long piece. We're going to fold it in half, and then we're going to create our ruffle. But I don't necessarily keep it clipped. I usually just do it at the sewing machine, so you'll see that. Okay, so now I just put a chalk mark so that I can follow the guide, but if you're a seasoned pro, then you don't need to do that. I usually don't. So we're just going to sew right across. that's how it's going to look. So you're kind of sewing from both sides, but you have that overhang, and then when you go to, just gonna quickly show you, cut off the fabric, then when you open it, it's gonna look like that. And that it should line up perfectly, and then you can give that a good press. We'll probably open our seams, and then it won't feel as bulky as a seam. If we had it right across, then it would just be like more obvious and more bulky. So by doing it this way, it kind of distributes the seam better. Okay, so now we're going to split our seams, and we're going to give that a press. And then once we've done that on all of our seams, then we're going to fold it in half with the wrong sides together, and we're going to press it like that. So we're going to go to the end, and we'll just fold it in half. So if you had fabric that had a right or wrong side, I want to see the right side on the outside. And we'll just do that all the way down until our whole ruffle is all folded and neatly pressed. And you can see where we did our seam here. So it looks a lot nicer. It looks like it's a mitered seam. Doesn't create as much bulk and just looks so much nicer. So I'm gonna go ahead and do all that now. Okay, so we have all our frill neatly pressed in half. I folded it in half and found the center point. I'm gonna put a little triangle here, and that's just so that when we go to put it on our apron, we're gonna line that up with the center of the apron so that we can get it sort of even, like so there's a, you know, even amount of fabric on either side of the apron. It's gonna be harder to tell once you start putting the apron on or when you start gathering it, so I'm just gonna do that little snip here. And if you want to take the front of your apron also and just do a little snip, and then you can make sure that when you go to put the ruffle in that you just line it up with that little triangle. Okay, so we're just gonna do a seam allowance like 1/8 of an inch or a quarter, whatever you're comfortable with, and we're gonna do a base stitch, and that means I'm gonna do the longest stitch length that is on my machine. Mine is a 4.5, yours could be 5. It's going to be the easiest to gather. I'm going to sew to the center of the ruffle, and then I'm going to stop and give myself a long tail, and then I will continue on just so I can split up the gathers so that it's not as difficult, because I've done a stitch all the way down the whole ruffle and it just makes things way more complicated. Okay, so I'm going to stop, and I'm going to pull my tail, and then I will continue on again after that. Okay, so now we're going to take one end and we're going to grab the thread and we're going to use that as our pulling thread. And you're going to be very gentle with it because you don't want to end up snapping it. So what you do is you just kind of pull and I kind of just run it down. You're running down the ruffle or the gather. And we're just going to do this towards the center where we put that little marking. And then we'll do it the opposite way. Just keep going. And then as you get to a spot where you're like, okay, it's very well gathered, then you can take it to your apron and kind of gauge if it's the correct length. It needs to be like 40 something inches to get around the whole of your apron. So I'm going to go ahead and do this off camera just because it can be a little tiresome. So I'm just going to go sit and do this. Okay, so we're going to get our clips. Okay, as many as you can. We're going to go ahead and find that center point that we cut, and we're going to line that up with the center point of the front of our apron. You kind of just fold that fabric back, and we're going to line up the raw edge of our ruffle with the raw edge of the fabric, and then we're going to kind of sandwich that, put a little clip, and there might be a lot of threads just because it is a woven fabric. So when you're doing your ruffle, it's a little crazy. So if you do have something like a ruffle foot, that's always really fun and a lot easier to make your ruffles. I don't have one of those, surprisingly. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to just line up your ruffle and you're going to try to get it so that it goes all the way up the side. And I have a little gap here. That's okay. I'm just going to kind of gather it by hand and just kind of, you can use as many clips as you want. We'll reset the clips when we put the other fabric on top. Just try to get all your little loose threads though on this side. And if you have too much ruffle, when you get to the end, you can just clip that off. You know, if you feel like you're like, okay, this is way too long, or I'm just not even gonna fight it. And then we'll just like fold this back down and then reset the clips. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And then we can begin sewing the ruffle in. I'm so excited. It's gonna look so cute. After this step, when you turn it right sides out, it's just like, oh my god, it looks so cool. So I just wanted to show you what I've done. So I have my ruffle going up here and I'm actually going to be veering it off. So just like kind of turn it at a 90-degree angle. I put a pin in it. So I'm just going to fix those clips, and I've only done half of it so far, so but this is how it's gonna look on both sides. Okay, it's all prepped, so now we're gonna do, you can do like 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch if you're feeling more comfortable, just so you can make sure everything is caught nicely around the edges. So now we're gonna go and sew it up. Okay, starting at our one end, I'm just gonna take this pin out, and I'm probably gonna give it a good seam allowance. And if you want to even make it a bigger seam allowance, like just make a little bit of a wider ruffle. so you don't like chew into it too much. All these threads. And that base stitch that's underneath, if you do end up seeing it on the outside, once you're all finished, you can just use your little stitch ripper and just get rid of those stitches. Ooh. Okay, so I'm just going to take my picking shears, snip off that excess ruffle, and if you want to go around and do that also. Okay, are you ready? This is the big reveal. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. How cute! Oh my god, how cute! So there are some spots where I can see my threads, and I'm gonna just kind of fix that up off camera. I even missed a spot here, so I'm just gonna pick that and fix that. But pretty well, I think it looks pretty good. I could never do this like on the first shot. Like there's always gonna be a little something, so don't feel bad if you have little spots. It happens to all of us. Okay, so I went ahead and interfaced this piece. This is going to be the front of our waistband, and I like to make this one interface because I'm going to be folding the ends of it, and I really want to make sure that that is nice and crisp. So I just use some medium weight interfacing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be folding up the bottom of one of the long ends. It doesn't matter unless this is a directional fabric, and if it is, then you want to fold this at the bottom of your print. Now if I can try to explain this to you, basically what's going to happen is that this piece is going to fold down like this. So if you do have a directional fabric, you want to make sure that this section, this line here, or this edge is the bottom, because this is going to be the top of the band. So all of your little designs, you want them to be right sides up. So when we're putting this band on, it'll make more sense. But being able to put this on now, then you won't, you know, accidentally do it the wrong way later on. So then I'm just going to go to the ends, and I'm just gonna press. And this might end up changing. We'll have to see when we get to that step. But I'm just gonna do it now. And this is just prepping the band for when we go to put it on. And again, I'm just gonna do this. Okay, so this is the back of it, and I'm just gonna make sure that the top of the apron is like all even, all my fabrics. So I'm just gonna use my rotary cutter and carefully line up, make that nice and straight, and then if you want to do a base stitch, you can. If not, then we'll just go on to the next step, which is getting our waistband. Now, like I said, the waistband might be a little bigger. Remember when we did those little folds here? So if they are, that's okay. You can fold them in after, but what we're gonna do is we're going to sew along this edge, and we're gonna sew up until the seam. If you had your frill and you wanted to go right up and have your band go a little further, you could totally do that. I wouldn't add a little bit onto this band, but I chose to veer it into the apron. But I'm going to sew from seam to seam. Okay, that's as far as I'm gonna go. Okay, so like I said, we're only gonna go up to this spot, and we'll do 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, making sure that we have all of our layers caught. If you did what I just did with that, you know, just slicing that little bit off, make sure that all of those layers are in. Go right up till there. So that's how. So like I said, I had that previous fold, but that's okay. We can cut that off if you want to, or just fold it right inside. It's no big deal. Okay, so now we're gonna work on our ties. So what you're gonna do is make sure that everything is nicely ironed. I have a little crease here. I'm just gonna fix that. And then all I'm gonna do is I'm going to put the long sides together like this. And if this is of course, I always need to go back to this. If this is a fabric that has a right or wrong side, we're going to put the right sides together. We're going to sew down the long side, and then we are going to flip it right sides out. I made these the width of my cotton fabric, but of course, if you are smaller or you know who it's going to, you don't want to have such a long tie, then you can make this shorter. What I'm going to do at one end, and I'm going to do this for both pieces, I'm actually going to just show you with some chalk here, is I'm just kind of like pretending that's my seam allowance. I'm just going to veer off, and what's that going to do is just going to make it look a little bit more decorative. So this is the end of another one that I made. So it kind of veering off of it like this, and then that's just going to give us like a nice ending to our tie. 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And then I'm just going to veer right off. There we go. I'm going to take my little pinking shears and I'll just cut off that excess fabric right there. Okay, so now we're going to take these little ties and we're just going to flip them with the right sides out. And to do that, I usually like to use something long, so I'm going to use my knitting needle. And I'm kind of going to put it on my stomach and just go like this. And I'm going to pull like that. It's actually quite quick. And then while we have that knitting needle in there, then you can kind of poke out the corners and then I usually like run it along the seam. Usually at the very beginning. And then we're just going to make it so that the seam is at one side. And we'll give it a press. I'm just going to do the next one. Okay, so once you have both of your ties nicely pressed, then you're just going to do a top stitch along the edge, and we're going to do it about 1/8 of an inch, and that's just going to make it look nice and polished. Okay, so now that we've done that, I'm just going to pull up the waistband, and we're going to push that seam up, and we'll we'll press that. And do that all the way down. Make sure that it's nice and tight. And we can grab our ties at the same time. So we have those ready to go. We're almost done. This is so exciting. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your waistband and you're going to fold it down like this. And as we're folding it down, we're going to press. And then we're going to fold in the sides very nice and neatly. We're going to take the ends of our ties and we're going to slip those in, and we're going to do that on both sides, and then we'll do a seam all the way around, and then we have an apron. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. This is so adorable. So we want to make sure that our fabric is over top of those stitches. So we're essentially going to be sewing on those stitches again, but just on top of this red fabric. So what I do is I like to take my tie, and because I have that little curved here, I'm going to make sure that that part is like at the top. So I'm just going to bring my tie down, and I'll show you what I mean here. I'm going to cut off some of this excess. Okay, so you're folding up, and then you're going to fold over. Okay, and if you want to just snip off the corner, or we can do it this way. That might be easier. And then we're going to fold down. We'll press it. And you can fiddle with this a little bit more, but we're just going to get the initial press in. And then take this, tuck it inside. You can tuck it in a good amount. I'd put like 1 inch in. And then you want to make sure that that is kind of straight across, and then you can pin. Like that. So that's how it's going to be finished off. And I'll just put another pin here just to keep the tie from coming out, and then we can go ahead and do that to the other side. And I'm going to place my pins along here. Going to go Okay, so you want to try to make sure that everything is tucked in. We're going to start on this side as it's not going to be noticed as much. You're going to do a pretty small seam allowance. And then we'll adjust it into it. And then you have to roll your apron into your machine. Turn. And then with the seam of our little straps here, I usually line it up with that so it kind of looks like it was a continuous seam. Just do all along the top, and then that's it. Okay, and we're done. How adorable is this? I'm absolutely obsessed. It's so cute. So I do have pictures of other variations I've made of this pattern. I made one out of denim, which is really cute. So if you're interested in looking at what those look like, follow me on my Instagram and my Facebook. All those links are in the description box. But this doesn't have to be a frilly apron. You know, this is a great staple apron for anybody. So I made it out of denim, so it has had a more masculine feel. You know, you could definitely, there's lots of room to put applique or embroidery or cricket and make this a really nice gift for Father's Day or something like that. So I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, give me a thumbs up, comment down below if you have any questions. Of course, I'm going to have a download for this and all that information is going to be over at the blog post, and check for that blog post link in the cards or in the description. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next tutorial. Bye guys!